Hi, welcome back to the Love Mom podcast. I'm Amy.
And I'm Kasey. We're glad that you're back. We had a different podcast scheduled for this week. We talked about grief last week, but after the show, Amy was sharing with us that that was the first time that she had shared that story and that she wasn't even planning on sharing that story. So, as we talked, we thought that that would be a good place to take this episode. So I know that this is a very delicate story, and I know that this has been hard for Amy to share, even amongst us. So we wanted to give you a safe place with people that you know and that love you. So this is for you tonight, Amy, to be able to tell as much as you want, as little as you want.
Right. Like you say, our podcasts are unscripted. We have an idea of what we're going to talk about. And one thing led to another. We were talking about addiction and the genetic link, the familial link. And I began to tell my story about living with an addict for 2+ decades. And before, I'd really never considered that as a family linked to addiction. I really had never considered that those 20 years meant anything when it came to my own son's addiction. Whenever I talk about family history, I think about family history like my parents, my brother, my immediate family, my current husband, and no one that I know of in that family has any experience at all with addiction. So for me, I felt like I had no ties to addiction before, and I had just kind of put that whole experience in a little compartment and had never considered it, never talked about it. It was just a part of life for that time being, and I washed it away whenever we got a divorce. And now I'm starting to realize that the impact of that is pretty significant and it's pretty far reaching, and it was actually very traumatic, and I've never really dealt with any of that. And I one of the questions that people had was, you can't be serious, your family didn't know anything about this. So tonight we're going to do something a little different. I'm actually here at my brother's lake house. We're up here I'm on a vacation of sorts, and Kent and his wife Kimberly have agreed to be on the podcast and answer some questions about that time frame and answer questions about our family and maybe just discuss some of the things that happened.
Yeah. And we are so glad to have them and get another perspective. Um, I know you shared with me, and I hope I'm not sharing too much, but that it was a very emotional night when you shared with them your story,
Yeah,
and that they um,
they were hearing it
couldn't
for the first
believe it,
time.
to say the least, hearing it for the first time, and um, just couldn't believe it, and were really hurt or disappointed that they couldn't be more support for you at the time that you were going through it. So,
And I'm so glad
yeah,
I
we're glad.
shared with him off camera for the first time, because if I'd had him on this podcast and started asking questions, I really would have just assumed that they knew more than they did and did the same as me, just swept it under the rug and moved on. But that honestly was not the case.
Yeah, yeah. I think that we spoke about it probably on every episode that we've done about the guilt and shame that go along with um, being involved in that situation. So I'm happy that we are discussing this as a unit, and
Yes.
I want you to know that you have all the support uh, that you need,
Thank you.
because we love you. We care about you.
Thank
That's
you.
what we're here
Mhm.
to do, is take care of each other. So
Right.
This will be very emotional for you, I know, but, the reason that we started this was to bring awareness and to help other people going through this that don't know what to do. So I know that someone will watch this, whether it's the first day that it's posted or a year from now, and someone will be helped because of this. So um, we'll see
Okay.
what.
Well, I'd say let's bring on our guests.
Let's bring them on.
Okay.
It is our privilege to have our very first guest ever with us here on the Love Mom podcast. We are honored tonight to have Amy's brother and sister in law, Kent and Kimberly, here to help her as she shares with us the story of her former husband, the father of her children, as we talk through the addiction and the 20 plus years that she spent in that situation. I know we had talked about the stigma, the isolation, the not sharing what you were going through, Amy, and I know that that's challenging because I went through that as well. And you shared with me that when you told the story a few nights ago to your family, that it was the first time that they really knew what you were going through. So I know that that was very emotional for everybody. Kind of take us through that a little bit.
Right. Honestly, I thought that they knew more than they knew about my ex's drinking and about his drug use. I really thought they knew the story about the night that I finally left him. I thought that I don't know, I thought they were just more in tune with a lot of the story. I was really shocked to know that they didn't really know anything about any of it. I mean, I don't really know. Were you aware that he was a drinker, right? Or
Not even. I mean, I thought of Stacy as somewhat of a social drinker, but a light drinker at that. I never saw him intoxicated. I think I did when you were dating, like there were times that we would be at parties together when I was probably in high school or
right,
college, but that was, obviously a long time ago. And so I Stacy hid it from us completely, and I was not aware of it at all.
right.
Um,
Well, like
yeah.
I was talking about, there was one year that we used to all vacation in the same condo, same beach every year.
Mhm.
Whole
As a
family,
family.
my parents, you, the kids, everybody. And one year I had to shoot a pageant, Miss Illinois, and you came and picked me up from the place I was shooting in Chicago. We
Yeah.
hopped a plane the next morning and met my parents and my kids down in Florida and Stacy. And he was drunk at the airport. He rode by himself. No one rode back in the car with Stacy because he was intoxicated. He was not allowed to drive with the kids. There were several times that vacation that he was passed out in bed that people said, "Where did Stacy go?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Maybe he's laying down, or maybe he went and took a nap. Maybe he's on the beach. We don't know."
Yeah.
Um,
What I remember about that, I mean, one incident specifically, it was that we couldn't find Stacy.
right,
We thought that he had just wandered off and was doing something on his own.
right,
And it turns out that he had been asleep in your bedroom with the closed door for 10 hours, like during the entire length of the day.
right,
But even then,
Wow.
I didn't attribute it to alcohol or
He
drugs.
worked third shifts or odd shifts. So if he was ever sleeping the
Yeah.
day, it always felt like probably, and I was a nurse, and so I worked third shifts. So, getting your sleep balance is very difficult.
Yeah.
We always attributed it to something like just because of his work schedule.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I didn't really know, and I didn't know that he was a drinker.
I didn't.
Amy and I have always been close and always had a very good relationship, but I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe it wasn't as open as we thought. Certainly as not as to, some of those aspects, right? And so I just, yeah, I was not aware through the entirety of it. I had no idea.
Neither one of us were.
Well, I know she speaks very highly of you, so
How could she not?
shared. Yeah. And living through it myself, I can look back at my situations, and you just don't, you don't tell people, for various reasons.
It was
Yeah.
heart-wrenching
You're
to find
embarrassed.
out.
You
Heart-wrenching to find out.
you don't want people to know.
And so this had been going on for decades, and Amy had been living with it for an additional decade or more. And I found out about it on July 20th of 2026.
Same. Yeah.
It was,
It was heartbreaking.
it was remarkable to me that she could have internalized it that long without telling us.
And we felt heartbroken. We could not help, or we didn't help because we didn't know, and we didn't reach out because we didn't know. And so,
And it just seemed so normal to me. It just seemed like it was just normal life. Uh, Packing up everything and getting out of the house whenever it was really bad one night was literally normal for us. The boys knew whenever I did like this and said, "Go get your shoes." They went and got their shoes, they went and got in the car, and we went somewhere else. And it was just so normal. And so every day I just didn't even think about it. I
Yeah.
just absolutely learned how to, there were workarounds around everything. There really were. And him working a swing shift helped tremendously in my explaining things away.
Yeah,
He's asleep.
covering up
Okay,
for
no
it.
problem.
Yeah.
He was up for 12 hours, so of course
Right.
he's asleep. So
yeah.
right.
But and I know that was Amy's normal when she was married to Stacy now, but that wasn't our normal growing up by any
No,
stretch,
and
like not at all. And so it was, it was a very normal
right.
household.
And that's what I'd said too, is that whenever I talk about family history of alcoholism and drug abuse, if somebody said, "Do you have a family history?" I would have said, "No." I mean, we had great parents growing up. They're still married now. They're still in love. We had an idyllic childhood. We lived in a great house in a great neighborhood. We, I'm gonna say we got everything we wanted, but pretty much. I mean,
We
it
did
was,
Yeah.
we didn't want for much, exactly. And there were no signs of abuse ever. There was no signs of alcoholism. Drug use was a big no.
But that's what was shocking to hear your story and your side of it, because to me it felt like that should have been those red flags, you know, from the time you and Stacy were together. And I guess I just struggle with. I wish I could have helped you, and then I wish you could have felt like, there were people around you to support you with
I don't know.
this.
I think it felt so trashy, you know? It really did. It felt
We
trashy
talked
to
about
talk
that
about
multiple
it. And
times.
that's what happens with trashy people is they right, they have drug addicts and alcohol and
You don't want to be one of those people, one
that
of those parents,
right.
one of those.
That's not my family. That's not me.
Yeah.
That's not what anyone would expect from me. So
Yeah. Shame is a tremendous motivator. It just is. I mean,
And I think that's the big misconception with addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol. I think I don't think, I know that that's why I'm so passionate about this podcast, and I'm so passionate about reaching as many people as we can reach, because the stigma of this has to stop. It's not those people over there. It's not those people under the bridge. It's everyone. It's me. It's people who have a lot of money, who are educated, who live in big houses, who drive nice cars, whose kids go to good schools, and we try to provide everything for them. It's kids who are smart. My son is very smart. A genius probably, and Amy could say the same thing. So it's everybody, and we need to make it more comfortable saying that, and people realizing that it's everybody, instead of us internalizing it and isolating and not telling our stories. I was reminded of a comment that I heard, and I can't remember where I first heard it. It may have been a Naranon meeting that I went to. We're only as sick as our secrets. And there's so much truth in that until you start sharing with somebody and getting that out. It eats you alive and it keeps you from getting the help from your loved ones, or maybe not even help, but the support. Because there are some people who you can't tell everybody, because some people don't always have your best interest in mind.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, when I would share with people and then you get that advice that isn't always the best advice, he's got to hit rock bottom. He's got to figure it out for himself. He's grown now. Well, maybe that's the case, but let your child be homeless in Las Vegas and see how you feel about it, because it's tough.
And I know
It's very
there are
tough.
these internal, and I mean, there were these internal and external motivators, right? I mean, part of it is, the stigma or the shame or not wanting to talk about it. But also, Stacy, in addition to whatever, addiction issues he had some violent tendencies. And so there's that panic of, what if I go tell someone about this? What is
Sure.
Stacy going to do? I didn't realize that until a few nights ago. And so there that
Yeah.
constant dread, I'm sure, internal to her, of, if I go tell someone, or if I go get a restraining order, if I, tell my brother
the
or
kids
my
are-
father or something, what is going to happen? Clearly would have ended the marriage, and whether or not it would have ended some lives in the process,
Right.
that's the other question.
That was
Absolutely.
the always
Absolutely.
tiptoeing around everything. Everybody said, "Why didn't you go after him more in the divorce?" Well, I just wanted out.
Right.
I just want
Ab-
out. I keep your money, do whatever you want to with it. Keep
Your freedom was more than any of the material things.
just let me go. Let the
And the
kids
kids
go. I just want custody of the kids, and let's just call it a day. I mean, I I never really told anybody about any of this. Now, that being said, I can remember his parents coming into the house before. This is his parents coming into the house, and there was a hole in the wall. And they said, "How did that happen?" And I said, "That's where my head went through," because he had pushed me through. And I remember his mom laughing, saying, "He really needs to lay off the alcohol."
Wow.
That was the response that I got, and I never said
Wow.
anything else about it again.
Were they drinkers?
So did
Were they?
he have any family history of alcohol or drug abuse on his side of the
I
family?
don't think so.
But they
I
clearly knew he was drinking, because they said
Yeah.
he should lay off alcohol.
Right, they said, "Yeah, he
I
needs to
wonder how
lay off
long
the
they knew
booze," yeah.
he had a problem with it.
I mean, that was early in the marriage, so, I mean, they knew for a long time.
Did he drink too much in high school? And I mean, has this been going on?
He was a
you-
social drinker, like
You
saying,
guys met
we
in
got,
high school, right? So
we knew each other in high
Okay.
school. We didn't date in high school, but at the time, everybody went out to the bars. We were all 21, 22, 23 years old. Everybody was out at the bars every weekend. He was good time Stacy. He was a great time to have at a party. We got invited to a lot of parties. We had a lot of friends. We had a lot of parties.
Yeah.
And from the outside, it did not seem problematic. It seemed like he was a really good time.
Yeah.
It was just after the
Yeah.
party that it was not such a great time, but and then it morphed into drug use. The alcohol was not enough, so it morphed into other things.
So was there a pivotal moment that was just the breaking point for you, or how did
No, I
you?
mean, the breaking point was the story that I told on the last podcast, where I had always kind of been threatened with violence
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
threatened with different things. It
You
did not seem like
He meant it that
that
time, and
till he shot the dog and the cat. And I told that story last time, so I won't need to really go
yeah,
into it. But
right.
that for some reason seemed to make it very real. Now he always had guns on him. He always had a drink in his hand. He was always high, but this seemed to really
Scary.
scare me enough that I needed to go.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Yes.
Amen. Amen.
So he had tendencies towards you. How about the kids? How was he with the boys?
Never trying to think about this. I don't recall a time where I felt worried for the kids until that night. And I felt like he was on so much of a rampage that he would probably have done something that night. Up until then, he had never hit the kids. He had never yelled at the kids. He was always extremely permissive with the kids. He was
sort of fun dad.
He was super fun daddy is what he was.
Yeah.
Didn't you say that night though he was saying he wasn't sure if he was going to kill you, and then about the kids?
He did mention, the kids that night, and that was the first night he ever said
It's
about.
so scary because there may have been none of the four of you left.
Probably not. Probably not. I think that was probably his last resort plan, but I think that definitely he was going to shoot me and then shoot himself. I think he was really internalizing what he was going to do with the kids at that point. But up until then, I had seen no real signs of
Yeah.
those kind of tendencies toward our kids at all.
Yeah. I have two sons, and my sons are very protective of me. You know, the Oedipus and Electra, and girls love their dads and boys love their moms. And how were the boys when you left? Were they very protective of you? And
The boys are very confused. They were used to leaving out in a moment's notice. Usually, whenever I do like this, and I'd tell them, get your shoes, or I'd point towards the door where the shoes were, they would go get their shoes on. We'd leave. That was no big deal to them right then. And we almost always ended up at my parents' house. So that was absolutely no big deal there either. They honestly didn't know for sure that they were not going back until it'd probably been 2 weeks whenever we finally got down and talked about we're not going back. And at that point, they were very upset. They didn't understand why I'd want to leave their dad. Their dad's awesome. They love their dad. Why would I leave him? They just did not see what I saw. I shielded them from everything, and maybe that was wrong. Maybe that was right, but I did try to
Did what you thought was right.
did what I did what I thought was right.
After they left, did Stacy change
out?
towards them? I mean, did he start to become aggressive towards them or say anything?
So after we left, he was not allowed to see the boys for about 6 months. We
Really?
we had a trip planned. We had been gone for about 2 months. We had a trip planned to Florida, down to the same condo. I had told Stacy that that would be a good time for him to check into rehab and get 30 days in. And I said we could probably be gone and back and steal another little time away where it wouldn't feel like we were gone that long. He could probably get his 30 days in rehab before we even had to explain anything.
yeah,
And that was an absolute no go for him. That was an absolute no. That was never even a consideration. So
sounds like he didn't have any interest in
he
Did he even think
stop.
problem?
Well, he knew he had a problem because he was being sent home from work. People from work were driving him home because he was too drunk to work. He worked in a power plant, which should tell you that you should not be lit when you go to work.
Impaired.
Yeah.
Right. They sent him home several days. He knew that he knew he had blackouts. He knew he had missing time. He knew that he had issues, but he thought that he could stop anytime and he didn't want to hear any differently.
Yeah.
But I did not allow the boys to go back around him. It was probably 6 months before they were allowed to go back. And when they did go back, they had to go to his father's house to be supervised.
I
So
feel like I remember you talking about that. I didn't realize it was 6 months later, but
it was, yeah.
what was
right
it
at 6
like the
months.
first time for them when they saw Stacy?
They were super excited because they hadn't seen their dad
Right.
in months. And
Was it like a normal
it was just
interaction?
absolutely normal. Like
Yeah.
nothing was wrong.
Which probably reinforced to the boys, like,
They,
why is this happening?
yeah, they came home and had brought me gifts that they said, "Oh, Dad bought you stuff for your birthday, and
No way.
open up these presents, and now see how much Dad loves you. He bought you a computer, and he bought you a chocolate fountain." That was why.
Yeah.
So you remember that, right? I
We
mean,
used
that
the
was
show.
we used the chocolate fountain. Yeah. And they thought I was kind of a jerk for not getting back with him. Fortunately, shortly after that, he found a girlfriend and they began dating. And then they were more worried about, Mom, you're going to be alone. Shouldn't you find somebody to date? So
Had you filed for divorce at that point?
we had not filed for divorce at that point. We were separated for nearly a year. I was waiting for the right time. There was so much that went down in that year.
And you were living
I
with your
was
parents,
not. I
though.
was living with my parents. The boys were living there with me with my parents. We just didn't want to start the fire if it was going to cause problems. I just tried to roll with it as long
Like,
as I
just
could,
keep, just
just to keep
live
the peace,
apart, but
just
just
to keep
not
the
acknowledge
peace.
the
And
marriage.
and truthfully, divorce is expensive, and I was a single mom. I was not getting any child support the entire time we were separated. I didn't
You
get
weren't working, I'm sure, were you?
I was still doing photography
Photography,
stuff, so I was supporting us on that. And I say divorce is expensive, so I just let it ride until he finally filed. And
Oh, he
he
filed.
had an attorney. I did not have an attorney. He said, "This is what
Which is the number one reason that women stay is financial.
financial."
Good.
And
Mhm.
his attorney told me how it was going to be. I said, "Okay, sure, I'll sign." And I didn't even go to court. I just signed the papers, and
You
I
didn't
think
want, yeah.
I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want to show up at the courthouse. I didn't want to contest it. I contested nothing. So that was it.
It's one more similarity we have, Amy.
Yeah.
My first husband and I used one attorney, his attorney, and I just signed everything.
Right. Right. I hate to go all Tina Turner on him and I just want my name, but honestly, I just want it out.
Studies show that children with alcoholic or drug addicted parents are 4 times more likely to develop a substance use disorder themselves later in life. The combination of genetic predisposition and environmental stress, especially in boys. So you had mentioned that the last time when we were talking about the genetic link, that's kind of when you had the aha moment that you hadn't been able or hadn't thought about the possibility that's what
Right. It was
Contributed to.
it was the nature versus nurture argument there. I thought if I removed him from the situation, problem solved. You know, we weren't
Mhm.
around any alcoholics, we weren't around any drug addicts, we were in a totally different state, they had totally different friends. Our family dynamic had changed completely. I thought that part's over, cut that out, we're finished with that, and it just never really occurred to me genetics. It really did not. And I feel stupid now thinking that, but I really did not think that that would have that much to do with it. I thought it was all about environment and all about how you're raised and all about how you're nurtured.
To be honest, I did too. My former husband's family, when I tell you that he had the most leave it to beaver family, grew up in the church. His mom was the wearing pearls and doing everything in the community woman. God bless her. She was probably the greatest woman ever to walk the earth. She was a great human being. So I thought, boy, I'm married to this man and he's got this family, and even though I've got all this stuff that went on in my family, my kids are being raised this way. And I felt exactly the same way that you did, that nature versus nurture. And this will never happen now because they're being raised right. Whew.
Certainly, your kids took divergent paths, right? I mean, same
Absolutely.
home, same situation, and
Right.
Liam,
Completely different.
knock wood, has not or did not suffer from any of that, and then Evan
Well,
did.
yeah,
But
abused
there's
by
also,
alcohol or
like
drug abuse for sure.
there are so
Mental
many
health
other,
problem.
yeah.
That's what worried me when you talked about Stacy's. I thought his biggest problem was like depression and then this, the sleeping and the different shifts. I always thought that was his bigger problem. And so I do think, mental health is something you have to be extremely sensitive to when because it can be
Right.
genetic
He
and it
was
can be
diagnosed as bipolar towards the end of his life. He was diagnosed with bipolar
Yeah.
Yeah.
and was on meds for that, but he clearly abused those and took what he felt was right for the moment. And
Yeah.
I had actually,
There's such
you know,
a link between all of them, the mental health, the alcoholism, the drug use. Many times in all of the research that I've done, you don't have one without the other in anything that I've read. You just don't have a drug
there's one
addict that
first, but
yeah, right.
probably
has
most of the time.
mental health diagnosis somewhere in there. I tell the story all the time, and I'm a nurse also, and I work in the emergency room, so I see all the doctors. And just recently, one of the psych residents was in the ER, and I asked him the same question that I have asked everyone for 38 years: which comes first, the schizophrenia or mental health diagnosis, or the drug abuse? And no one is able to give me a concrete answer. Is it the chicken or the egg? Because um, it, I think that 7 times out of 10, the drug user will tell you that they were only trying to calm the noise, make themselves feel better. I don't believe that anyone wants to live the life and go through all of the chaos that a person goes through, because I see it every day. Every shift that I work, I see the ugliness of the disease.
Much pain.
Right.
They're trying to
Yeah,
pain usually with
You
so
know,
yeah.
I did see the mania in Stacy several times. It was not consistent, but I did see it several times when the kids are very small. I can remember being in bed at night and being woken up and literally drugged by my hair from the bed right to the floor, across the house, and into the room where the computer was, set me in a chair and said, I found this camera I'm going to buy. I need you to buy this on eBay. I'm not sure how to do all this. I need you to do this. And this would be like 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and he'd have to work the next day or something. And he's completely just absolutely wild. And I would sit there and buy the $7,000 camera knowing that this was a real bad idea. But I would do that and he would be just fine. I'd get up and go back to bed. And that happened. Not that particular scenario, but things like that happened all the time. So, like I say, it was not an everyday thing, but yeah, certainly it had to have been there. I don't know at this point he was abusing drugs or if it was just alcohol at that point, but it's really hard to tell. It's hard to remember.
Our brain has a way of blocking out those memories to protect us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
To disassociate
many things
us
come
from.
back that I hadn't thought about in years, and I think, oh yeah, I remember that now. And like I say, I hadn't given it a thought in years, and now it's kind of like I'm starting to remember things. So I don't.
Is that healing for you, or is that how does it make you feel now?
I would love to say that's healing for me, but I honestly don't know at this point. It's just disturbing at this
I would say to you, now that we know your family, we love you, we support you. Anytime, you want to talk about it, we're here for you. We love you. We feel horrible that we weren't there and available for her, but we didn't know. And you can't speak to something you don't know, but we want to be there and we want to help you. And if you ever want to talk about it, you always have our ear and our hearts and our love for sure. So,
Yeah. And we grew up in a very loving home, but we didn't grow up in a very open home.
right.
I mean, our communications, in our house were kind of perfunctory.
Right.
It was like direct communication, and there was never really any arguing. There was never a whole lot of deep
not a lot of noise.
conversation. There was a very, very little emotional conversation
Right.
that went on. We knew we were loved, but that's but it kind of went without saying, and it did go without saying a lot of times, most of the time. And so you grew up being raised to be somewhat closed rather
Right.
than open, as did I. And so if you can learn, and you are learning to open up more
And teach Liam
more,
that.
yeah.
That's the most important.
Right. And
That's what we're trying to do. I always kid about our families because I'm not Greek, but if you saw the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, I generally grew up like the Greeks, loud, argued, noise. We had a great time. We had a horrible time, but it was very loud. And the Carters were very much like the groom's family, who were very nice and sweet and spoke brilliantly and very educated and lovely, but there was not a lot of noise.
Quiet. Yeah.
we were very
Very
quiet.
quiet. Yeah.
So what's
Exactly.
That is exactly how my husband and I are. We are. I don't know how we ended up together because we are 180 degrees different.
Well, and I feel
Yeah.
like I've helped Kent be open. I've forced him to communicate a lot in our marriage with our kids and our family. And it's been hard for me sometimes in your family because I do feel like it's quiet and we don't bring up anything that's controversial. But I believe that open communication and discussion is way more important. I had what I thought was a tremendous open conversation with Evan the last time I saw him, and I hold on to that like it's so valuable. And he was impaired and I didn't know he was impaired, but at least I felt like I sat there with him and we communicated.
Right.
It didn't do any good in the long run, but
Yeah.
Well, that's what I talked about. Our last good week. Our last good week was here, right here, was the last good week I had with him. And we all left all that week thinking that
he was gonna maybe
clear skies ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out. It
Yeah.
went
Now that everyone that we've had this conversation, you can always come to me too. My phone is always open.
yeah.
2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Amy and I talk at crazy times.
Yeah, well,
Just
it's neither of us sleep.
Yeah.
it,
We're women,
Right.
mothers, no one sleeps.
A little nap here and there,
yeah,
but yeah, I do feel like
the,
I've got
that we need to
a lot of people
focus,
that
not isolate.
right.
We know that is
But
one thing
being so
keeps addict addiction.
one of the things we have very much in common, I grew up in the South as well, and it was, I mean, my favorite line is, you're fighting in the car, you're screaming at each other, but you pull up to church, you get out of the car, and it's like, zip it, smiles on,
Yeah.
let's go. And
Yeah.
we
Put
definitely
on your lip gloss.
we
Let's get
did
inside.
lip gloss.
Yeah.
We definitely grew up this similarly that way, and I did not love it. My parents were wonderful. They've passed. It was all great, but I made an effort with my kids and still do to communicate, I mean, good or bad, to apologize if I've made a mistake as a parent. I think that's very important to apologize as a spouse, to take ownership and accountability for my mistakes because we are only human and we are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And the outward appearance doesn't have to be perfect because as long as we're communicating and we love each other and support each other on the inside, that hopefully will help our kids, you know, grow up and be
Right.
successful and
I
happy.
think that's the big difference between our generation and
Yeah.
our parents, your parents, Adam's parents,
Yeah.
is that we give a lot less cares about what
Yeah.
everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we are more emotional about it and we are more talkative about it. We talk about the night that I left Stacy, and I'll leave on this positive note on that conversation, a funny note. I packed up the kids. We got to my parents' house. We had no shoes, no clothes, no anything. It's all chaos. I had just left out of there after he had shot the dog, he had shot the cat. We got into the house. I called her on the way and said, "We're on the way." And she met us at the door with a clipboard. And she started in with, "Okay, how much is in your bank account? How much do you have a credit card that's in just your name? Do you have a credit card with Stacy? You need to cancel that out right now. How much do you owe on that? Do you owe anything on that? How much do you owe on your house? How much do you owe on your car? Whose name is the car?" I mean, it
But
was
that
like
was easier for
she
your
had
mom.
all of this.
That was
That is
easier
how
than
she.
her crying and hugging and
That's
saying,
how she processed.
I'm
Was
so
not.
sorry.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Go get in bed. Cry
Let
it
me
out.
hug you. Let
We'll
me
talk in the morning
yeah.
some more. It was, we're getting down to business.
Business.
We're
We're
getting
fixing
done.
it.
We're gonna fix this right now.
It's
Yeah.
a very Protestant approach, you know, like
I mean, that's
head down, mouth closed, row forward. You know, like that.
That's exactly how my husband would handle it. Exactly. And I'd be
and
all,
I'm
come on,
my
come on.
mom, because I totally
Yeah.
needed to know all of these
Right.
things, and I needed to have that checklist.
heart
And
was in
she
the right
was
place,
right
yeah.
there. She was right there, so I could check all of these boxes. I knew what to do, but at the time, it was just
Sheer devastation.
That
Not what where's the bank account?
I'm not carry a body.
spinning out of
So
control, and it's like, how much do you owe? Do you have a Discover card? How much is on the Discover card?
So, yeah. So now,
I love it. I love it.
When
I agree.
when it comes to grandkids, they're very emotional now.
Well, I think we changed them, you
Maybe
know,
so.
like over time. Yeah, that's exactly it. Which is perfect, you know.
I
I mean,
mean,
adaptive.
I think
Grandkids are different. That's
it is
different. That's a
different.
whole different.
I think about the night when we were in Florida, just the two of us and mom and dad, and Kent and I went down to spread some of Evan's ashes down on the beach because it was the same beach, same condo that we'd always all been to. And we went down to spread some ashes, and mom just cried all the way down the elevator. She cried the whole time we were out there. She cried all the way back up the elevator. Cried the next day. It was
But that was a good thing to see.
that was
I'm
a
sure.
great thing to see, and
Just
that was
raw
probably
emotion.
a very healthy emotion to have and a very appropriate reaction to have. So I think things have come a long way as far as communications go. So, and now that this has happened with Evan, it's like, what else could we possibly throw at him that's gonna, throw him for a loop? Because
Yeah.
honestly, there's not anything left. I mean, if your kids can come up with something more creative
Oh,
than
please
that
no.
one.
Don't wish that on us. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with us, and thank you guys for coming on to talk about it with us.
Of course. Absolutely. No, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate what you're doing and what
I
Amy's
agree.
doing. Yeah, it's wonderful.
I said, not everything can be awful. There's going to be some bright spots, even in some really dark times. So please remember that there are better times ahead. You're still alive. So we will see you all next time.
Bye.